I'm going back to my ex, my wife said after 15 years. I never really loved you. I just nodded. The next day, her own lawyer called with a broken voice. The house, the accounts. My God, what did you tell her yesterday during our anniversary dinner with grilled salmon? 15 years together, reduced to a disposable phrase between bites. Carla did not flinch. She even smiled, as if she were finally releasing a secret she had been rehearsing in front of the mirror for weeks. Then she added with a stunning calm, I never really loved you, Mark. I stared at her for a second, not because I did not understand the words, but because I was slightly impressed by the execution. She had waited for our anniversary. She had put on the dress I bought her 2 years ago. She had made sure our daughter was away for the weekend. And then she stabbed me with an emotional scalpel so sharp it did not even bleed immediately. I put down my fork, smoothed my napkin. I nodded. Then you should leave. No yelling, no the melodrama of dragging chairs, just the crisp click of finality. She blinked, baffled by the lack of a fight. That was what she wanted. Drama, a tantrum, a scene, something she could use as a weapon later. But I did not give her that. I gave her silence. That was what broke her rhythm. She was expecting the old Mark, the patient one, the boring one, the provider. What she did not know was that she had just activated a completely different version of me, one she had never met and would not like. Back at home, she stomped around like a teenager who just won a breakup, packing loudly, passive-aggressive calls on speakerphone, fake laughs at her ex's jokes. God, that man's voice sounded like a clogged drain. She passed me in the hallway dragging a suitcase as if she were starring in her own made-for-TV movie. She looked me in the eyes and said, I guess I will finally get half of everything. I did not answer. I simply leaned against the kitchen doorframe with my arms crossed and watched her walk out of the life I thought I understood. She thought she had detonated a bomb. What she did not realize was that I was the one who lit the fuse 7 years ago. Now, before I continue, and the story gets better, you should know something. More than 90% of the people who listen to stories like this never subscribe. And honestly, that small gesture motivates the team more than you can imagine. So, if you are still here, consider it. We appreciate it more than you know. Anyway, I stayed in the kitchen for a while. Not because I was processing grief. I was reviewing protocols. When Carla says half of everything, what she really means is half of what she assumes exists. She has no idea about the trust, about the overlapping entities, about the property transfers that happen automatically when a spouse voluntarily leaves the marital home. It is like watching someone jump out of a plane with a parachute they pack themselves, not realizing that I had silently switched the pull ring. I went into the office, turned on the light, and took out a small black box I had not touched in years. Inside was a USB drive, notarized documents, the original post-nuptial agreement, and the unsigned activation letter. Until now, I sat down, took out a pen, and wrote a single sentence. At 10:47 p.m., spouse Carla Whitman has voluntarily vacated the shared residence with the intent to end the marriage. Clause 7U activated. Signature, date, upload, encrypt. By the time her Uber left the driveway, she was already a guest in a world that no longer belonged to her. But she did not know it yet. She thought she had just humiliated me, leaving me gasping in the emotional rubble. What she had really done was open the door to the one game I'm better at than any one structure. And tomorrow would be the first move. The door did not slam shut. It clicked, silent, final, like the door of a vault closing. I waited exactly 13 seconds after the sound, just long enough to hear the Uber crunch on the driveway gravel. Then I went to my study. Not on impulse, not out of rage. I had no emotions left to spend on Carla. I was not angry. I was freed. The desk lamp came to life with a warm glow. Familiar, unchanging, unlike her. laptop boot sequence, local key decryption, a biometric confirmation. The desktop loaded as if it had rehearsed for this moment. And in a way, it had. For 7 years, I had built contingencies like a man stacking sandbags before a hurricane. Carla always assumed I was obsessive with paperwork because I was old school, that I liked control, that I was boring. She never realized I was building a fortress. I navigated to my asset tree, a private encrypted diagram that looked like a spider web that had gone to law school. Every LLC, every holding company, every silent partner agreement, all legal, all mine, all designed to go into full execution mode with a single trigger. I found it. Clause 7. U-trigger by spousal abandonment. The voluntary departure of a spouse from the marital home with the intent to dissolve the union initiates the isolation of assets. The trust executes the transfer of property titles to a private holding entity under the main grantor, me, and revokes the spouse's rights through the signed postnuptial agreement. All I had to do was click execute. And so I did. A single click, no drama, just a green progress bar sliding silently across the screen. The house under the name of Bitmark Holdings, LLC, now formally prohibits third-party occupation without the grantor's consent. The brokerage accounts reassigned, beneficiary removed. Her car, the one I gave her for her last birthday, transferred to the trust as a collateral asset, released under a corporate fleet title. Let her argue ownership with a VIN that does not match her insurance. Every item that looked like a shared life had always been mine, just wrapped in prettier paper. She never asked how the mortgage disappeared or how the Second Lake house was just a timeshare. She never questioned why I was so diligent with paper trails and quarterly audits. Even in retirement, Carla thought she had married a man who was afraid of chaos. She did not realize she had married a man who prepared for betrayal. I opened the second safe, took out the sealed envelope marked CW activation. Inside were 4 things. The original postnuptial agreement, a notarized affidavit that had expired 3 years ago, a USB with time-stamped activity logs, and a final letter addressed to her lawyer and signed until now. I picked up the pen and wrote 3 words at the bottom. Let us proceed accordingly. I signed it, dated it, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in the outbox. Then I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. It was not the first time I had imagined this moment, but I admit it landed with a heavier silence than I expected. It was not grief, just absence, like when a noisy appliance suddenly shuts off and you realize how loud it had always been. For 15 years, Carla filled the house with small demands and casual complaints. She had mastered the passive sigh, the way of saying "Mark" seriously, as if it were her favorite punctuation mark. Now the house was silent, and I finally had room to think. One by one, I checked the status of each lockdown. Primary residence reassigned, financial accounts redirected, joint liabilities nullified by clause activation, digital accounts, 2-factor authentication activated, access revoked. She could still log in to Netflix. I left her that. I'm not a monster. And then just before midnight, I executed one last command. Notify attorney, structure active. My lawyer's phone would buzz at 8:01 a.m., not before. He would find the signed documents, the logs, the time-stamped video from the door camera showing her departure. No drama, just structure. This was not revenge. Not yet. This was architecture. Tomorrow would be when she would try to draw blood, but she would realize the knives were no longer hers. The next morning, I was making coffee when my phone vibrated. It was not a call or a text message. It was an alert from a private social media monitor I had set up years ago originally to track corporate mentions when I was still active in the auditing world. Old habits die hard. I had forgotten I had left her profiles on the list. And there it was. Public post image. Carla cozying up to her ex, Stephen. The walking midlife crisis. his arms draped over her as if he had won a prize. Both of them holding champagne glasses, grinning like it was prom night, but with Botox and back pain. Caption: True love always finds its way back. Cheers to finally being free. Posted at 9:27 a.m., I stared at it for a full minute. Not because it hurt, not because I missed her, but because of the time stamp. 9:27 a.m. and not today, yesterday. Roughly 3 hours before our anniversary dinner. Before the salmon. Before that, I never really loved you. Before the fake tears and the packed suitcase, she had taken that photo before she even told me. While I was at the florist picking up the roses, the same roses she pretended to admire at dinner before she gutted me in 3 sentences. That photo, that smug caption, was not just tacky. It was a legal landmine. I opened the post-nuptial agreement and went to Clause 9b, premeditated abandonment with intent to defraud the spousal trustee. The clause had a threshold, a premeditation demonstrated by time-stamped third-party behavior occurring before the marital departure. Why? Because during the agreement negotiations, my lawyer had asked a single question. What if she has emotionally checked out and is just staying for the payout? So we included the clause. If evidence emerged proving an intent to leave before informing me, and that intent involved an alternative romantic engagement or concealed communications, she forfeited all rights to community property. Evidence, like for example, a time-stamped selfie with her ex. I opened a secure tool and downloaded all the EXIF metadata from the image. I confirmed the GPS, the time zone, the device model. I uploaded the report to my asset protection log. Violation confirmed. The legal structure had just evolved from a passive shield to an active weapon. What Carla thought was a champagne celebration was actually a signature. She just had not realized it. I forwarded the image and metadata to my lawyer with a single subject line. Clause 9b. Activation. No message body. He would understand. Then I clicked on the comments below her post. 37 likes, a few heart emojis, the usual dopamine bait, a comment from her best friend. Michelle, you deserve happiness. Red heart. Red heart. I told you he would come back. Michelle, the woman who borrowed $5,000 from me for dental work last year and then ghosted me. Interesting. Another comment further down caught my eye. From Carla's hairdresser. Wait, is this from yesterday morning? I thought you said you were still deciding what to do. She replied, haha. Shoo, do not out me. Crying, laughing face. Out you. Oh, honey, you already did that yourself. I saved a screenshot, printed the thread, and underlined the line. Do not out me. My lawyer would appreciate the irony. I closed the browser and leaned back in my chair, watching the steam rise from my coffee. A quiet morning, birds chirping. Somewhere in the city, she was probably floating on a cloud of ego and dopamine. She had no idea what she had just activated. You see, when most people think of betrayal, they imagine bedroom scandals, text messages, call locks. But the real betrayal is not about sex. It is about intent. That is what Clause 9b was built for, not to catch someone being unfaithful, but to catch someone plotting. And now it was Carla who had left the trail. Not me, not Stephen. Her post, her caption, her lie, and now her collapse. It would not come today. Precision does not work like that, but it would come because, in my world, the only thing more dangerous than an arrogant liar is one who leaves a timestamp on her crime. The call came just in the afternoon. Unknown number, but I recognized the prefix of a downtown law firm. I let it ring twice before answering. Mr. Whitman. The voice was young, overly cordial, probably fresh from a podcast on how to revolutionize family law. This is Mark. Great. This is Tyler Preston, the attorney retained by your wife, Carla Whitman. I wanted to reach out to you directly before proceeding with formal filings. His tone oozed a polished arrogance, the kind that comes with custom cufflinks and a lease Tesla. Go ahead, I said, sipping my coffee. I will be drafting a petition for divorce based on irreconcilable differences. Naturally, my client is entitled to an equitable division of the marital assets. We will be seeking her fair share of the primary residence, brokerage accounts, and any jointly owned vehicles. If you have counsel, you can have them contact me directly. But I thought a professional courtesy call might ease things along. You know, avoid unnecessary drama. His mistake was not what he said. It was how he said it. He assumed I was passive, a confused retiree, blindsided by the modern rules of the game. A man caught off guard. What he did not know was that I had met his senior partner 8 years ago at a charity gala. We had discussed asset protection and risk mitigation. Back then, I was just Carla's silent husband. I listened. I took notes. I studied the game. And then I built a better one. I clicked on my files. I dragged a document into a new email. Subject: Whitman versus Whitman. Preliminary note attached. Copy of the fully executed post-nuptial agreement. Asset distribution memorandum. Trust structure schematic. Clause 9b. Trigger activation log. Time-stamped evidence package. Social media post addendum. Nobody text. No sign-off. I clicked send. The call had gone dead silent. Mr. Whitman, he finally said, his voice a little tighter. You should read the attachment, Tyler. I will click. I did not gloat. I did not pin. I just waited. 6 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Same number. I let it ring a little longer this time. Mr. Whitman, he said, sounding now like someone who had just watched his law firm step on a landmine. Yes. Hello, I spoke with my client before initiating contact. She informed me she was not aware of any active structural encumbrances on the marital estate. She did not mention a post-nuptial agreement or the trust. No, she would not have. She never asked. Look, this is going to require an internal review. The trust, the clauses, the time-stamped post. This changes a lot of things. Correct. A pause. Then the voice dropped into something that resembled panic, barely masked with legal jargon. My God, what did she tell you yesterday? I smiled into the phone. Finally, she told me the truth. Click. Follow up. I leaned back in my chair, watching the screen. The email had already been opened 5 times, forwarded twice, accessed once from a mobile device. Standard legal triage. I could picture the scene. Carla smugly sipping something with bubbles while her lawyer read the clause out loud. Her jaw slowly tightening with each phrase, her face falling as she realized the boring man she mocked had just preemptively locked down the entire battlefield. I never needed to win the fight. I had already removed the weapons. She thought she was starting a war. She had not even realized the gates were welded shut. And her lawyer, he was her first casualty. A man who walked in thinking he was dealing with a clueless retiree and walked out holding a legal grenade that already had the pin pulled. The trust did not just protect me. It dismantled the assumption that this would be fair. Carla had written a script where I was the traumatized husband. What she did not realize is that I was the editor. Carla walked into the bank as if she were claiming a prize. Fresh blowout, big sunglasses, an outfit just casual enough to suggest she had not been crying in her ex's apartment all morning, which she had. But now she was on a mission. She thought she would start rebuilding her independent life by emptying the accounts she assumed were half hers. She even hummed a little tune as she walked in. The woman at the counter greeted her warmly at first. Hello, how can I help you today? I would like to withdraw from our joint savings and transfer part to my new checking account under the name Carla Whitman. The teller typed, paused, narrowed her eyes. I'm sorry, ma'am. I do not see your name on the account. Carla's voice sharpened. Excuse me. We have been with this bank for 15 years. Look it up again. The woman looked nervous now. It is not that the account does not exist. It is that your name is no longer associated with it. Carla's lips curled into a fissure. That is impossible. I can call the branch manager if you would like. Yes, she snapped. Do that. She stood there, rigid, arms crossed, watching through the glass as the manager, Thomas, a soft-spoken man with kind eyes and absolutely no tolerance for drama, came out with a file in his hand. He gave her a small, sad smile, like a doctor about to deliver test results. Mrs. Whitman, he said gently, please come with me. They went into a small side office. He closed the door behind them. This is absurd, Carla began. I need access to the Thomas held up a hand and opened the file. I just need to show you this. Inside were 2 notarized documents. The first, a beneficiary reassignment form that removed her name from all primary accounts, triggered by the breach of Clause 9 of a marital contract. The second, a notarized directive dated 6 years ago, signed by both me and Carla. Though she had clearly forgotten it, it authorized the financial institution to transfer full ownership to the primary account holder, me, in the event of spousal abandonment, confirmed by legal counsel. Carla's jaw tightened. This has to be a mistake. Thomas pointed to her signature. You signed this on April 14th, 2017, right here with a witness present. Our notary? You remember her? You said you joked about how ridiculous all this. Yes. She stared at the paper as if it had slapped her. Then her voice rose. You cannot do this. I need that money. I have bills. I have rent. I'm sorry, Thomas said, lowering his voice but keeping his back straight. The accounts are no longer in your name. There is nothing you can access here. Carla slammed her hands on the desk. So, open her accounts. I was his wife. He slid the file towards her. The document says was, and was is the key word. She stood up so fast the chair scraped behind her. You think you have one? You cannot just leave me with nothing. But the look on Thomas's face told her everything she did not want to hear. He was not judging her. He was pitying her. Security did not need to be called. She left on her own. No dramatic exit, no screaming match, just a stunned woman walking back through the lobby with her sunglasses back on to hide the panic rising in her eyes. Outside, she sat in her car with her hands on the steering wheel, breathing as if someone had just stuck a vacuum hose in her lungs. No money, no safety net, and not a soul she could yell at to fix it because it was her name on the exit plan, her time-stamped betrayal, her signature on the clause. What she had walked in with was arrogance, the belief that divorce was just a hostile negotiation with a cash prize. What she walked out with was nothing. Not a cent, not a bank statement, just a thin line of sweat on her forehead and the growing realization that this was not going to be the clean break she imagined. This was war, and she was already losing. By mid-afternoon, Carla had stopped pretending things were going well. The bank had blindsided her. Her lawyer had stopped returning her messages, and even Michelle, her ever-loyal echo chamber, suddenly had bad reception, and a thing with her kids. But Carla told herself it was just a phase, a minor setback. She still had this, her little haven, the apartment Stephen had shown her just a few weeks ago. Modern fixtures, clean lines, no framed photos of her boring past, just new air, scented candles, and Stephen's whiskey bottles lined up on the minimalist shelves like status symbols. Her fresh start. She pulled up to the curb, still fuming, but already mentally riding her comeback arc. She would text Stephen. They would order sushi, maybe pop some champagne again. They would post something spicy on Instagram to remind the world that she was unbothered until she got to the door. A yellow notice taped to the wood like a slap. Lease agreement terminated. Vacate in 48 hours. Her eyes scanned the page. It was not from the landlord, not even from the property management company. It was signed by Mark Properties LLC. In smaller print below, Asset Manager M. Whitman. Her brain stalled. She tore the paper off and fumbled in her purse, stabbing at her phone until she got the property manager on the line. This has to be a mistake. I live here. I have been living here for weeks. Ma'am, Ohm Properties has issued a contract termination per the discretionary clause outlined in the corporate lease terms. You are not the primary lay. What the hell does that mean? I have paid the rent. The primary lay, Stephen Marlowe, has been notified. The termination is coming from the holding entity. All fees are being waived, but the unit is no longer available. But why? Who the hell is that? Yark. There was a pause on the line. I cannot disclose internal ownership, ma'am. But she did not need him to. Carla's eyes fell on the bottom corner of the notice. There it was, a small watermark logo, the same font I had used for our estate plan branding, a stylized MW inside a square. Mark Whitman. She was still trying to process it when Stephen opened the door behind her, holding a sandwich and looking like he had just woken up from a nap. Babe, he blinked. What's going on? She shoved the paper in his face. Did you know about this? He scanned it lazily, then again, more slowly. Whoa, I thought the building was managed by something called Bizbridge. Apparently, they are owned by Yobart. He looked up, paling. Wait, are you saying your husband owned this place? Carla did not answer because she did not know, because she had never asked. She had been too busy playing at being liberated to consider that her entire rebound was built inside walls I had already paid for. The keys she carried still technically belonged to a holding company registered to a trust she had never read. Stephen stepped back inside, rubbing his face. This is a nightmare. I signed a 1-year lease. They cannot just— Yes, they can, she snapped. Apparently, he can. Stephen muttered something under his breath and retreated to the kitchen. Not a comforting hug, not an I will handle this, just silence and distance. His default settings when women raised their voices. Carla stood in the doorway, still clutching the notice. Her new beginning owned her safe space, revoked. The man she had run to was already checking his emails instead of her face. She walked out slowly, sitting on the apartment's stone steps with trembling legs. She watched the cars pass on the street, wondering how many things she still thought were hers would turn out not to be. She thought she had escaped to something new. What she did not realize was that every move she made had been pre-mapped. Every step forward, still within my perimeter, she did not leave the battlefield. She walked deeper into it. And now, even the walls were betraying her. The call came just after midnight. I knew it would. Jolly had always been the one person Carla could not easily manipulate, but blood is thick, and daughters still crave explanations. Dad, her voice was cautious, not cold. That is how I knew she had not taken a side yet. I just talked to Mom. She's not okay. I said nothing. She said you froze her accounts, that she has nothing, that you have been planning this behind her back for years. I took a deep breath, not because I was angry, but because I could hear the crossroads in her voice. Standing at that intersection of instinct and truth, she says, "You ruined her life." I reached for the black folder on my desk, not the legal one. This one was thinner, personal, the only copy of the post-nuptial agreement with annotations in blue ink made specifically for Harry, for when she turned 18 and started asking questions about estate plans and why her name was not on any joint assets. Section 12, I said. She paused. What? Section 12 of the post-nup. The clause about beneficiary exclusions in cases of active deceit or abandonment. Read it. Another pause. Can you send it to me? No need. It is in your Dropbox in the same folder as your student loan breakdown. The document is named Contingency LOEX Full.pdf. You saw it 3 years ago. Jolly just had never read it. Silence. I let it hang in the air. Look, she finally whispered. I do not care about the money. I just need to know if she is telling the truth. I nodded, though she could not see me. Then do not listen to either of us. I said, check her phone. Start with August. Look for the name Stephen. More silence. I could almost hear her pulse over the line. You knew. I have known for longer than she thinks. I heard her swallow. The call ended shortly after. No goodbye. The next morning, nothing. No follow-up text. No angry voicemail. Just silence. A quieter loyalty. But around 6:30 p.m., I received a single email from her university account. Subject, I read it. No body text, no signature, just a PDF attachment. Screenshots of Carla's messages with Stephen. I cannot wait to be free of him. I'm so tired of pretending. I keep the prenup in the guest room drawer. I think I can get him to sign a revision if I catch him when he is tired. If he dies, everything goes to Jolly, which I guess is fine. She will share with me anyway. I did not reply. I did not need to. She already had. Carla must have felt the silence before she understood it. 3 missed calls to Jolly. Then 5. Then 9. She finally left a voicemail. Honey, I just need you to understand what he is doing. He is brainwashing you. And that was it. That was what sank her. Not the bank, not the apartment, not even the trust. It was losing the one person she assumed would always remain neutral. Because Carla's greatest illusion was not thinking I would fold. It was believing her daughter was spineless. Hi did not respond. She changed her voicemail message the next day. Hi, you have reached Hullman. Leave a message. Not Jolly, not Hi, not the strange hybrid Carla liked when she was daydreaming about a fresh start and making Stephen her stepfather. Just Hullman. Turns out when given a choice between shared blood and lived truth, G did not hesitate. She did not choose the mother who told her fairy tales over sushi dinners. She chose the man who never lied, not about his flaws, not about his boundaries, not even about his silence. In the end, Carla did not just lose a husband. She lost her witness, and without one, her story no longer mattered. Stephen Marlowe had always considered himself a charmer, the kind of man who could walk into any room, flash a smile, and walk out with someone else's wife, job, or dignity, depending on what he wanted that day. He had not changed much since college. Newer veneers, tighter shirts, an Audi with more tech than brains. But under the surface, same man, same bluff. He thought he was getting the better end of the deal when Carla came back. You are glowing, he told her that first weekend in the apartment. He never deserved you. She had soaked it up like a plant, finally getting water, ignoring, of course, the cracks in the pot. Stephen had not asked questions. He did not want to know about prenups or legal separation timelines. As far as he was concerned, Carla had it handled. She talked as if the assets were already hers. She laughed about me. She called me Mark the Meek. She said I would probably cry in the shower for a month and finally hand over the passwords. She painted a picture of a broken man, gullible, easy to roll over. And Stephen, drunk on ego and half-prick champagne, believed her until there was a knock on the door. He opened it to find a man in a black polo shirt holding a clipboard. Stephen Marlowe. Yeah, you have been served. A thick envelope, cream paper, real ink. Inside, a civil lawsuit filed under the jurisdiction of the state. The plaintiff, Mark Whitman. The claim, intentional interference with a trust asset structure. Stephen scanned the page with growing confusion, then dread. Unjust enrichment, tortious interference. The term implied fraud was in bold. 3 exhibits were listed. One was a printout of the champagne photo Carla had posted, the one he was so proud of. Another was a transcript of the text messages between him and Carla, time-stamped to predate the formal separation. But the third, a lease document for the apartment signed by Stephen under a clause acknowledging receipt of property use consent from the holder of joint marital assets. A checkbox Carla had forged. And that was the trap. She had no right to sign that line because she never owned the asset, which meant Stephen had occupied a property, benefited financially, and participated in the concealment of marital assets under false pretenses. His face went pale. He called Carla. She did not answer. He texted her, "What the hell is this lawsuit? You said everything was joint. You said you had it handled." The typing bubble appeared, paused, and then nothing because she had not handled it. She never did. He had believed her because she was pretty angry and confident, and that is a dangerous combination for a man who has been coasting through life on the trust of others. That night, he was sitting across from his own lawyer, older, sharper, with a look that said, "I can already tell you messed up. You let her sign real estate forms on a property you never verified. She said it was hers. Did you check? Well, I did not think I needed to, son." His lawyer said, "This is not about heartbreak. This is about fiduciary fraud." Stephen swallowed hard. "Can I just apologize? Settle. You can try. But if they do not want money, if they want to set a precedent, you are in for a hell of a ride." And that is when he got it. This was not about squeezing him for cash. This was about making sure no man felt safe stealing another man's wife, and assuming that meant he could also steal his life, his home, or his name. Stephen was never the real prize. He was the instrument, the scalpel Carla used to cut away her old life. But what neither of them realized is that the handle was still mine, and now the blade was turning. She requested the meeting as if she still had leverage. "Tell him I want to see him in person." Her message to my lawyer said, "He owes me. Owes me." That word again, as if the 15 years I spent cleaning up her messes, protecting her credit score, or quietly paying off the car loan she co-signed for her lazy brother, were not enough. As if I had not already paid the debt 10 times over, with silence, with stability, with restraint. But I said yes, because by then I understood something she still did not. This was not about reconciliation. It was about her needing an audience. We met in a neutral building downtown, 3rd floor, a conference room with a long walnut table and glass walls. Her lawyer did not come. He had already recused himself after realizing how outmatched he was. He probably did not want to be in the room when the iceberg emerged. I arrived 5 minutes early. She showed up 9 minutes late. Sunglasses, dark lipstick, that jacket she always wore when she wanted to look put together. But it did not hide the panic in her eyes. Her confidence had thinned to a brutal defiance. "Nice room," she said, sitting down without a greeting. I slid the folder across the table. She did not touch it. "What is this?" she asked, already annoyed. "Your life on paper," I said. She opened it, expecting noise. Instead, she found silence in print. Exhibit A, social media post with Stephen, time-stamped, geolocated. Exhibit B, transcripts of texts recovered from her synced cloud backup. Flirtations while still married. Jokes about dismantling Mark slowly. Exhibit C, audio of her phone call with Michelle. The part where she said, "I will make him think I'm still undecided, just long enough to cash out." Her hand stopped on that page. She looked up. "You recorded me?" "No," I said. "Michelle did. Apparently she thought she was the Rayall co-conspirator CEO. Turns out betrayal does not come with loyalty programs." The color drained from her face. Then came the clause. I had highlighted it for her. Section 14B. Any attempt to emotionally coerce, manipulate, or intentionally deceive the grantor for financial gain will result in the total forfeit of all marital or trust asset claims. She read it 3 times. When she spoke, her voice cracked. "This is insane." "No." I said, "It is notarized." She gritted her teeth. You cannot just erase me like this. I did not erase you. You wrote yourself out of a ledger. I just closed the book. You think this makes you strong? No. It makes me free." She flipped through a few more pages. There were financial triggers she did not understand. Automatic liquidations, auto transfers, clawbacks, things she had never asked about while she was too busy pretending our marriage was a cage. "You hid all this from me." "You never looked," I said calmly. "You were too focused on what you deserved to notice what was protected." She closed the folder, trembling. "This was not love." I did not answer. "You did not love me." And then I looked her straight in the eye. But I love the law. For the first time, she had no comeback. Not a quip, not an attempt at manipulation, not crocodile tears, just silence. The kind of silence that fills the space after a gavel falls. She stood up too fast, knocking her chairs slightly off balance. "I hope you are proud of this." I nodded slowly. She opened the door to leave, paused, almost said something, and then walked out with no goodbye, no performance, just the hollow echo of high heels in a hallway that did not belong to her. The room remained still. All that was left was the folder, still warm where her fingers had been, and the unmistakable weight of a concluded war, not with victory music or cheers, but with a perfectly balanced ledger. And a woman who finally understood what it means to be outstrized by the man she never bothered to understand. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, without a crier, without a doorbell, without needing a signature. Just a discreet white packet slid into Carla's mailbox like any other suburban noise. She did not even notice it at first, not until well into the afternoon when she finally mustered the will to walk to the end of the driveway. Wrapped in a cardigan 2 sizes too big, wearing yesterday's mascara and 3 days of regret, she tore it open half-heartedly, expecting another legal update, maybe some dry filing about next steps or a tentative court date. What she received instead was finality. Inside were only 2 documents. The first was titled, "Notification of Irrevocable Dissolution of Private Marital Trust Authority." The second executed transfer of all nullified marital claims. No judge's name, no county seal, no docket number because this had not been filed through the family court system. It had come directly from the trust administrator, and it was done. Every remaining claim she had, assets, alimony, even her name on property records had been invalidated, not negotiated, not reduced, nullified. Because under the private trust we both signed, the moment she breached Clause 9 and later Clause 14, the dissolution process could be triggered and completed solely through the administrative process outlined in the marital framework. The courts were never necessary. I had built the end into the beginning. She read and reread the cover letter, her hands trembling now, her pulse hammering behind her eyes. "Effective as of the moment you told me you never loved me." That was the line. No threats, no anger, just a time-stamped knife and plain text. Carla stood in her tiny kitchen, what was left of her grand escape, and looked around as if trying to remember how all this started. The champagne, the photo, the laughter, it had all evaporated. Stephen was gone. He moved out 2 weeks ago after the lawsuit notice arrived. He said he needed to rethink some things and disappeared back into his ex-wife's orbit, where the drama at least came with shared custody and a second-hand BMW. Michelle was not answering calls anymore. The apartment was reclaimed by OMK. The lease termination did not even make the news. Even Jolly had gone silent. She sat at the chip table, folded the papers, then unfolded them again as if they might change if she blinked hard enough. Then she picked up her phone. Last contact, Tyler Preston, Esquire. She stared at the screen as if it had betrayed her. It was not that he was unavailable. It was that he was done, because no lawyer likes to stand in a courtroom holding an empty briefcase and a discredited client. She opened her gallery app out of reflex like a ghost searching for its reflection. She scrolled back to the photo with Stephen, the champagne one. It was still there. Same pose, same smug smile, but now the image made her nauseous. She tapped delete and then stopped because that photo was the trigger the moment she chose fireworks over foundation. And you do not delete a tombstone. The room around her was too quiet. No dishwasher humming, no music, just the refrigerator compressor kicking on and off like a tired metronome. She picked up the letter one last time, ran her fingers over the embossed seal. It was real. Not a draft, not a threat, just the end. Not of a marriage, of a narrative. She had spent years pretending I was a footnote in her story. She did not realize that I was the final editor,